Hello, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and I've got a bit of an update on the tropical low situation developing offshore from northwestern WA. We are looking now at the chance for tropical cyclone developing somewhere around the Darwin area in the next 14 days or so, most likely around the 20th to the 25th of November. We could be seeing a strong tropical cyclone out of it as per what some of the forecast models are suggesting. Right now, it doesn't look like Broome or Darwin are in the firing line for tropical cyclone activity, but it serves as a very good reminder that cyclone season is now here, and we need to remain vigilant and on top of the situation as tropical cyclones and tropical lows begin to develop. So right now we've got this tropical low situated here just towards the south of Bali and Indonesia, and it's going to be tracking very slowly over the next couple of days, organising as it continues into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, where it's expected to arrive sometime between the 18th to the 20th of November. Then with very favourable conditions here in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, as you can see, limited wind shear, which is quite high further towards the south of this line here, very high humidity values, which you can see by all of those thunderstorms that are bubbling away in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. We're going to see this low pressure system begin to organise, and that's going to happen sometime around the 20th of November. You can see it here on the forecast modelling here. By around the 20th, we're beginning to see this broad area of low pressure begin to consolidate, and that's going to happen somewhere offshore from the Tiwi Islands, most likely next weekend or so, so about 8 or 9 days away from now. This is very early for a tropical cyclone to get itself going. Normally, we begin to see tropical cyclone activity around the Australian mainland, especially for Queensland, into the start of the new year. So to see it at the end of November is very much before average, and the reason for that is the stalled Madden-Julian oscillation. If you've watched my El Nino-La Nina updates, you'll know all about the Madden-Julian oscillation, but you can think of it as a massive energy surge that it promotes tropical activity and tropical moisture on a cyclical basis. It goes around the world anti-clockwise on about a 40 to 50 day cycle, and right now it's stalled somewhere here, which is what's setting up all of this moisture and sending down all of this cloud activity in towards Central Australia, what's eventually going to develop this tropical low. Anyways, I digress. This low pressure system will begin developing sometime later next weekend, and it's going to begin to head further towards the east initially, and how far east it gets is really dependent on where this tropical low does begin developing, or until those steering currents come out of the north and push this tropical cyclone down towards the Northern Territory, and then eventually out back towards the southwest, where it's going to end up either over the northern parts of Western Australia or out into parts of the Indian Ocean, where it will then perish because of an abundance of dry air in the atmosphere. So I don't know if you've got the memo yet, but this system here has got a pretty uncertain future ahead of it. We're not 100% sure where this system is going to develop. First of all, it's going to be somewhere in here. We also don't know exactly how far towards the east it's going to get before it makes that U-turn, and how far south or west it goes, whether it is a southerly track that this storm takes and it goes in towards the Kununurra or the Wyndham area, or if it goes southwesterly and heads out into the Indian Ocean. Again, the details still very, very uncertain, and it really could take any one of these three track options here, which throws pretty much all of the Kimberley region of WA and the top end of the Northern Territory on notice for the potential of a tropical low or a tropical cyclone moving through. It's a really messy forecast, and I'm not making this video as a forecast update per se. I'm not telling you to begin preparations for a tropical cyclone. I'm making this as a reminder that we are now in tropical cyclone season. We're beginning to see things like this spit up on the forecast models, and what this means is when they do begin to develop, tropical cyclone watches and warnings are going to be issued. So whilst this system here still has about 6 or 7 more days until we really know what's exactly going to happen with this low pressure system here, and what you need to do if you are in Darwin or on the Tiwi Islands, for example, in regards to preparing for this potential tropical cyclone, it is now time to get your cyclone emergency kits ready, your first aid kits up to date, and your cyclone plans with your family and friends all up to date as well, because tropical cyclone season, as mentioned, it's upon us, and tropical cyclones like this one are going to begin to become a part of our weather scene over the coming couple of weeks. Now, in terms of what the forecast models are suggesting right now, they're actually pretty congruent. Both major forecast models, the ECMWF and the GFS, call for this system to move in towards the Australian mainland. The GFS and the ECMWF both have this system developing right about where that L is. The GFS takes it into the top end of the Northern Territory along this track here off towards Katherine, and then the ECMWF forecast is, as you can make out, taking it in towards the northern parts of Western Australia on this kind of track here throughout the through the Kununurra and the Wyndham area. Right now it's impossible to say exactly what track is going to happen and what forecast is going to eventuate, but right now my money would personally be on the east-west forecast. It just makes a little bit more sense. With the steering currents coming out of Indonesia right now, it doesn't really make sense that this system is going to run straight for landfall. It's going to likely curve around a little bit before it does make a landfall, if it even does make a landfall, or even if it is a tropical cyclone to make a landfall, because obviously that's going to be a factor as well, whether or not it actually gets to tropical cyclone status, which is very much on the fence at this point in time, even if it does develop. The GFS forecast model also has a massive landfalling bias, which means when it has tropical lows developing, the supercomputer computer basically just takes them in to the nearest point of land for a landfall. And it's what we saw with Tropical Cyclone Alfred when it developed off from the Queensland coastline, and it just went straight for Gladstone, whereas in actual fact it kind of took a higgledy-piggledy track before going in towards Brisbane, which is what other forecast models were suggesting. That's a bad analogy for Northern Australia, but it makes sense. The GFS forecast model always takes these systems pretty quickly in for a landfall, and I personally reckon that this forecast here is going to change and favour a recurving pattern. That is, of course, if a tropical low or a tropical cyclone actually does end up developing. Now, the conditions are very favourable in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. As you would expect, sea temperatures are hovering between 30 to 31 degrees Celsius, which is, by no exaggeration, jet fuel for tropical cyclones, so that really can intensify them quite quickly. Furthermore, there's high levels of atmospheric humidity and moisture in the atmosphere, and pretty low levels of wind shear. Basically, anywhere south of this line here is where high levels of wind shear are, 100 knots plus, but anywhere further towards the north, we've got wind shear values approaching the 20 to 25 knot mark, which is not ideal for a very strong tropical cyclone, but it is healthy enough to get a tropical cyclone off the ground and intensifying. It will struggle a little bit, but it's not the worst conditions in the world. One thing that I would like to note as well is that this system, if it does develop into a tropical cyclone, it's going to be very small, probably around 150 kilometers in diameter. So not quite tropical cyclone Tracy small, but we're still talking about a very, very small tropical cyclone here. Now, small tropical cyclones are highly susceptible to the environment that they find themselves in, and in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, where the environment is extremely favorable for tropical cyclone development right now, it means that this system could rapidly, if not explosively, intensify. Again, we're in tropical cyclone season. We've seen Category 5 cyclones threaten the Australian mainland in November. It does happen, and considering the fact that we've got warmer than average sea temperatures, it just makes it all the more likely. I'm not saying that it will happen, but it serves as a good example that strong tropical cyclones are possible. Now, conversely to that, small tropical cyclones are also very, very prone to being ripped apart from high levels of wind shear. So once this system does approach the Australian mainland, particularly if it does go for a West Australian landfall, and again, this is purely theoretical, only if it does actually make it a tropical cyclone status and go for a WA landfall, for example, it's then going to begin interacting with the jet stream here, which is blowing very, very strong west to east, as we know, which means it's going to be ripped apart and it's going to collapse in on itself very, very quickly. Again, all of this is very much theoretical, and it's only if this tropical cyclone does actually develop. It will be a small system, so highly susceptible to conditions, but we're not 100% sure if this system is even going to develop right now. And there are plenty of forecast models out there that are very much against this tropical cyclone, but for the most part, it looks like the majority of major forecast modeling is very much on board with a strong tropical low at the very least developing, and potentially even a tropical cyclone as well. In fact, it's got model support from the two major forecast models that I use for tropical cyclone forecasting, the European and the GFS, and it's got pretty much half support from the Icon and the Axis as well. So it's looking like it is a possibility, and I definitely reckon between the 18th out to the 24th of November, anyone in this black circle here is going to be on tropical cyclone watch. We're going to be talking about tropical cyclones in great detail up here. If you have found this video informative or helpful in any way, then please do consider subscribing. This will be your home for the next 6 months for Australian tropical cyclone coverage as well, in a little bit less detail compared to my main channel, so go and check that one out as well. But that's going to be all from me this afternoon, this evening, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.